what the heck is that? And why is it produced by so many different plants and animals? And why does it produce in people a most extraordinary experience? I haven't tried it, but I certainly know people who have. In fact, I said that I was giving a spiel like this to some of my staff, and one woman immediately said, she said, "Oh, well, it changed my life." I go, "You tried DMT?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "The problem was that I did it twice, and I didn't need to do it twice because it completely changed my life the first time." And then another woman was sitting there, she goes, "Well, I did too." And she said the same thing. She said that the reality that she experienced on DMT was much realer than the reality she experiences in our life.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Has that been your experience as well?
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
It's whatever it is. It doesn't seem like an illusion. It seems like another reality.
Well, again, it's produced mainly at night by the pineal gland.
Not necessarily. Rick Strassman from, you know Rick?
Yeah.
He now believes that it's produced in the brain itself, and it's also produced in the liver and the lungs, and it might not be the pineal gland that's producing it at all. They've kind of changed their perspective on that with the Cottonwood Research Foundation, some of the studies they've been doing on it. But they know that in some animals, it's produced there as well. I mean, they're doing rat studies. But it's whatever it is, it's produced by the liver, the lungs. It's like it's endogenous. It's the most potent psychedelic known to man, and the human body makes it, and it's illegal. And that's what Terence McKenna had the greatest line about that. He said, "Everybody's holding."
I know.
Which is funny.
It is
because
funny.
like you have a Schedule I substance that's made by the human body. It's literally like making saliva illegal. It's the stupidest thing ever.
But think about this. We don't know what it does. We don't know what it's for.
Right.
But it's out there all over the place.
Right.
And people do have these very unique experiences on it. And people over and over again say that reality is more real than this reality.
Well, you know, it's also very similar in its compound to psilocybin, especially when it's processed by the body. And that's one of the more interesting theories about how humans became human was McKenna's stoned ape theory. He thinks that human beings, when there was climate change in the savannas, as the rainforests receded into grasslands, we started experimenting with different food sources and flipping over cow patties because there's more ungulate animals in these fields, and that we started eating mushrooms that were growing on the cow patties, and mushrooms increase visual acuity, make people more amorous. They start having more sex. They make them better hunters because the visual acuity induces glossolalia, creates language, all these things, associating sounds with objects, that all these things blossom. And then there's the doubling of the human brain size, which coincides in a timeline with that. Dennis McKenna does the best job of explaining it. Terence was, you know, a bard and a fascinating sort of a philosopher, but his brother Dennis is a hardcore scientist, and the way he explains it, he talks about the actual physical mechanisms, the different things that happen to the human body when they encounter this substance, which also there's a bunch of different ways that people endogenously stimulate it. There's holotropic breathing it's probably stimulating that. There's a bunch of different states of meditation that people can achieve. There's Kundalini yoga, which I know people that have both done DMT and are regular practitioners of Kundalini yoga, and they seem to think, or they seem to at least state that they can achieve these states of consciousness without taking the actual drug itself. They can force their brain into making it.
I think what's happening is that the pathway, the quality of the connection is being changed. And I think that's what we can test. And so, I've been working with people in multiple fields.
Are you saying that you think we're connected to it always, and then the quality of the connection is changed by taking ayahuasca or taking dimethyltryptamine? That's what's happening. So it's just enhancing the quality of the connection.
Correct. And I think at the opposite extreme, there are a lot of things that go wrong with our brain. Maybe when we just get drunk, or maybe when we get clubbed, or that really
diminish the connection,
diminish it, or just cut it temporarily.
Right.
And I think I think all of this is testable, and the only problem is so far the neurosciences labs have not been looking for this. They've just never looked for evidence of transduction. But I think when we start looking for it, we're going to find it. And that can make two big changes in the way we see everything. Can make a change in that we finally begin to understand how the brain makes us as intelligent as we are. It turns out it's not a self-contained processing unit, so it's not playing the role we thought it was playing, but it is very critical in the transduction process, very critical. It's preparing content for transduction, and of course it's bidirectional. The microphone is unidirectional, but the brain is a bidirectional transducer, and it'll change the way we see the structure of the universe.
So it's interfacing with consciousness rather than being conscious itself.
Oh, it's not consciousness. No, it's an avenue. It's a pathway, and that is what is connecting us with all this other stuff. This stuff. My mom, who passed away about a year and a half ago, but my mom, in those last couple of years, she kept saying that she was hearing music. And she loved music. She always loved music, but she was hearing music that she had never heard before, she said. And she would sometimes try to hum the music or sing the music. And she said it was always coming from downstairs. And then people would say, my mom was very, she was very sarcastic in her manner. And so someone would say, well, I don't hear anything. And she'd go, well, maybe you should get your hearing checked, because she just assumed that it was real. I expressed the concern that the music was always downstairs. I said I'd be more comfortable if it were coming from upstairs. And she goes, oh, no. She says, don't worry. I'm not going to hell. I said, okay, fine. It's coming from downstairs. But that's a perfect example. Where is that stuff coming from? Or even people who hear voices.
Right.
Well, if you have a pathway into another domain where there's intelligence, anything could come through. It could be the weird stuff that happens in brains. It could be music you've never heard before. It could be voices telling you what to do. See what I mean? Look at these mysteries. There are just so many of them. Mm-hmm. And yet we sit here complacent, and then we make up stories. That's what we do. We make up stories. And as long as the grammar is right, we think we've got it figured out.
What do you mean by making up stories?
Well, like the computer metaphor. If you go back in time to explain human intelligence, at first it was God. It was some sort of Holy Spirit. Then at some point there was actually a metaphor involving liquids, movements of liquids, and then there became mechanical machine, like kind of Descartes kinds of things, machines that somehow explain consciousness and intelligence. And the metaphors keep changing over the years. Right now we're stuck with the computer metaphor. It's still a metaphor, and it's silly. It's a silly metaphor. And I think we have to face up to the fact that our brain is doing something unique and special, and that we couldn't always do it. There's a point in time before which apparently we weren't doing it. Then there's a point where we started to have this ability. And I think this could explain the Fermi paradox, because, again, according to this book by Mills, was quite interesting, unless somehow something uplifts you beyond just what normal evolution can do, you're stuck. You're being a chimp. That's it. You're stuck as chimp forever. No morality, small groups, okay? But humans are fundamentally different. We did make that leap, the one Darwin couldn't figure out. And I think this is the leap. I started out in math and physics a long time ago, and I've also been looking at the physics. And the physics is there. The physicists, they know that this reality is just not it. So take those two problems. That is to say, the structure of the universe is actually very rich and complicated and very hard for us to imagine. And the fact that we have no idea how the brain works, and add to that all the mysteries, you could take care of all of these problems with a neural transduction theory, especially if we can find supporting evidence.
And when you say the universe, you're talking essentially about all aspects of it, including like subatomic particles, which is like the deepest mysteries, when things become magic, when things don't make any sense at all.